here is something that needed to be said. And I said it before, so it's nothing really new. And I will say it again, okay? Because it's grounded in facts. The political problems that have plagued Grenada throughout the decades is promulgated, okay, by GBSS and PBC Boys. These GBSS and PBC Boys who got involved in politics in Grenada for decades have destroyed politics in Grenada. For decades have caused confrontation and divisiveness in politics in Grenada. So these GBSS and PBC Boys are the ones that are responsible for the situations we've been in, are in, and the situations are going to get worse if these GBSS and PBC Boys they're doing it because it benefits them. They do not want the Grenadian people to be awakened. They want them to be asleep. They want them to be divided because they know if there is united Grenadian people, guess what? The stunts and the viciousness and rapaciousness that they engaged in over the decades and is engaging in will come to an end. So let's start from the beginning. And we're not counting the rural man who might have gone to GBSS, because they will tell you that even though they went to GBSS, they weren't treated as an equal citizen of GBSS. They were treated with scorn, and in some respect, even though they went to the institution, was looked down upon. So that is why you see they didn't like Sir Eric Matthew Geary. Okay? He wasn't one of them. And he gravitated to the mass of people. And he was a true man of the soil. He was a rural man. So, of course, he didn't belong to that clique. And that is why that clique did everything they could have done to sabotage him. And eventually resorted to physically overthrowing his government. And when they got in, boy, did they cut up Grenada like a slice of cake. Okay? You know, I'll tell you a little story how these guys were positioning themselves, okay, to brutalize and to oppress the Grenadian people. I'll tell you what, in the beginning of the army, right after 1979, for you to join the initial phases of the army, for you to join, all you had to say that you was from GBSS or PBC. And then you're in. Yeah, men who lied and said they were from GBSS or PBC and got in. So when they filled the ranks of the initial army and the needed foot soldiers, then they started recruiting the rural man. That is how sneaky these GBSS and PBC boys think they are. And of course, because they had the upper rank, they got the rural man to go against the rural man and to mete out violence against the rural man and to brutalize his rural brother. Now that is facts. And I always tell you guys, when I say what I say, they could get vexed, they could get angry, they could blow a gasket or something, but they cannot dispute anything I have said. On top of that, these big Bajan, and they became big Bajan in the army, okay? These big Bajan and them who fill the upper ranks of the army, guess what? When the shit hit the fan, these were the first set to run. As you can see, today, all of them are alive. And again, it was the rural man who spilt his blood for Grenada. I mean, the record is clear. Go look at it. Go look at all the men that sacrificed their lives, these young boys, for the state of Grenada. Standing up and defending the state of Grenada. It's 99.9% rural men. Today, I see the rural men are once again allowing themselves to be led, to be bamboozled, to be deceived, to be distracted, to be intoxicated in a state of drunkenness by delusional petty bourgeois politicians. And don't be confused. Many of them, if you check back, they have rural roots, but they have dissociated themselves They don't want to associate with their rural roots, and they see the rural man as inferior to them. That is why, in many respects, they look down with scorn at the rural man. Again, this is the reason why they had no love and respect for Tillman Thomas. He was not one of them. These petty bourgeois GBSS and PBC boys, they suffer from a delusional superiority complex. That delusional superiority complex is what is driving Grenada politically into the ground, and is ultimately responsible for the confrontational, divisive climate that we find ourselves in. They are the ones that are promoting it. Again, I want you to understand, I don't want you to be confused, that I am talking about the GBSS and PBC political cadres. Yes, the GBSS and PBC commissars that have infiltrated the NDC, and in some respects have hijacked the NDC. And they treat the duly elected Prime Minister of Grenada, Mr. Deacon Mitchell, as some sort of court gesture, dressing him up and musing him in socialist Marxist puppetry, to the detriment, to ultimately the detriment of Grenada. I hope you see through the demise of the revolution. Again, the demise of the revolution was actually a confrontation between GBSS and PBC boys. Bet you guys never thought about it. You had one or two PBC boys that kind of jump on board with the GBSS boys against the PBC boys. But ultimately, it was a confrontation between GBSS boys and PBC boys. They all got too greedy, and they wanted to secure the power for themselves. So there it is. From the overthrow of Sir Eric Matthew Geary to the demise of the revolution, and now in this year time, the divisiveness, the confrontational climate, the torturous climate is being again promulgated by GBSS and PBC boys. Now you truly understand the political struggle that the Grenadian people faces. So, my fellow Grenadians, if you don't understand what has taken place, how are you going to come up with a solution to deal with it? If you don't realize that it is only through education, making people aware of what's going on, and that education will translate into awareness, and that awareness ultimately will translate into liberation of the Grenadian people from the clutches of these GBSS and PBC boys, these political commissars, and these socialist Marxists and imposters. And it's the only way we are going to liberate ourselves. We must understand what is taking place. Now, if you don't believe me how much you look down on the rural man, I want you to take a look at this. This was at the so-called groundbreaking ceremony for Polaris. Take a look at this and tell me if you observed what I observed.
But I pause to acknowledge the Nichols family, led by Mr. Leroy Nichols and Mrs. Margaret Nichols, for agreeing to sell the land to the government of Grenada, and by extension, the citizens of Grenada, and for keeping this land intact since 2013, and for not cutting it up and selling it off in plots. Because in 2013, the then government of Grenada, which was then an administration led by the Honorable Tillman Thomas, had agreed with the same Nichols family to purchase this very said land to construct a general hospital.
So if you notice, PM Deacon Mitchell starts off by heaping a bunch of praises on the Nichols family. And then he slows down and he says, look, well, the then government in 2013, which was a Tillman Thomas's administration, wanted to purchase the land from the Nichols family for building a hospital. So now Tillman Thomas, at the groundbreaking, is positioning himself for some sort of praises to be lauded on him, okay, for having the idea in 2013 to wanting to purchase the land to build a hospital. So Tillman Thomas is getting ready. He's like, okay, all right. He's going to acknowledge me a bit. He's going to heap some praises on me for doing that. But what do you know? Let's take a look.
But it took 10 years of waiting. And his second chance came in 2023. And so I acknowledge a debt of gratitude.
So look at the big, broad smile on Tillman Thomas's face. Because now he's anticipating. He said, okay, well, he already praised the Nichols. And I'm the one in 2013 who wanted to purchase the land to build a hospital. And he spoke about that. I didn't expect him to skim over it I expect him to give me a little bit of praise. So you could see the anticipation in Tillman Thomas's face. And his smile is from ear to ear, anticipating, expecting a little bit of praise to be heaped on him. But look who PM Deacon Mitchell lauds praises on even more.
To Mr. and Mrs. Nichols for recognizing the strategic importance of this land and in effect for keeping it.
And there it is. You would have noticed that the broad smile that Tillman Thomas had immediately relaxed into a more serious look, and his body language in disapproval of what was said, in disappointment of what was said, he sort of looked away. He didn't even look at Deacon anymore. And you could see the delayed response of his wife in applauding. There it is. So it tells you how PM Deacon Mitchell treats, values, or looks down upon in some respects at Tillman Thomas. He's serving him the same dish that many have served him in the past. And yes, I know you will ask the most logical question. Where did PM Deacon Mitchell, an upstart in some respects, a new arrival on the political scene, where did he learn to treat former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas like that? He obviously learned it from his predecessors. Okay? It's no mystery here. He's in the club now, PM Deacon Mitchell. So of course they're going to give him some sort of rules of conduct, so to speak. And they're going to give him some sort of pecking order or some sort of order of gradation, okay? And association within the Southern clique. So again, the PBC and GBSS Boys are at it again, disgracing, dishonoring the rural man. Anytime, and that's what it is, anytime you see the rural man leaves his rural roots and he gets into that Southern clique, in some respects he feels like he have arrived. So he has got to play ball, lest his tenure in that clique don't last very long. And this is a sort of ritual of sorts. It's a way to signal to his new acquisition of friends that, look, I am one of you, and that is why I will engage in this ritual of degradation. I will denigrate who you don't like, and I will lift up who you approve of. So he can come and break the mold and treat Tillman Thomas or give him credit where his credit is due. No way. There will be consequences for him for doing that. His new friends will let it be known in very subtle ways. So take a look again at this little clip. I'm going to play it over a couple of times so you can see the disappointment in Tillman Thomas's face. Okay? You can see him just looking away and looking down.
Recognizing the strategic importance of this land. Recognizing the strategic importance of this land. Recognizing the strategic importance of this land.
And then he continues to throw salt into Tillman Thomas's womb. Okay? By heaping even more praise on the Nichols. Oh, they must have sensed the change of time. I'm sorry, Tillman. You have to understand the pecking order.
They must have sensed deep down, sooner or later, that the tide of change was going to come.
Es gibt keinen gefährlicheren Menschen als jenen, der sich in Höflichkeit, Bruderlichkeit, Liebe in guter Halt, doch darunter verbirgt sich ein reißender Wolf. No more dangerous a man that cloaks himself in civility, brotherhood, love, and kindness, but beneath it all is a ravenous wolf.